Welcome to the Marshall Pruett Podcast, presented by Cooper Tires. This episode of Catching Up, we have our friend John Doonan, Mazda Motorsports Director. He, his partners at Team Joest, his partners at Advanced Engine Research, and I would say primarily at Multimatic, have come up with a huge swing during the off-season to improve their odds, improve their chances of winning at some point, if not winning multiple times during the 2019 IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship season with their Mazda RT24P prototype. With all that said, knowing that there's been big changes on the driver's side, particularly with the endurance roles, some heavy hitters there, and then even more on the team side. Huge additions there between Lena Gade coming in as a race engineer, between Ralph Eutner from Joest Racing, who I think for many of us, when we think of Joest, we think of Ralph first, managing director, technical director extraordinaire. He is no longer a part of this Mazda program. Jan Lang, who's been effectively his number two for many years, has been promoted into that role. Just wide sweeping changes across the board. No other IMSA, DPI, or even LMP2 team has made as many structural changes to its program during the off-season. So I figured with all that said, let's get John on the phone. Let's talk about it. Not only explain the changes, but get into the reasoning, some of the goals and hopes. Hard to ignore the fact that despite showing immense promise in 2018, this team, their first year with Joest running it, they did not deliver to the heights that were expected. And I would say, knowing that, probably a pretty good driver behind why there have been so many changes to reach the peaks that they, I think, rightfully expect to achieve. One of the changes that came in, we pre-recorded this before the official announcements that are out today. Brad Kettler, one of my oldest and dearest friends, had been circulating the Joest Mazda Planet in recent months. When I spoke with Brad, I believe it was late October, early November, he thought his association with Audi Sport and Audi of America, being their customer service provider here in the States, was going to come to an end. That then rallied, looked like it might get fixed and might happen, and then very recently that has actually come to an end. Effectively a 20-year relationship has come to an end there. And so while Brad was floating around the possibility of doing something on the Joest/Mazda side, it really took a very recent decision for that to come into play. Enough so that when John and I pre-recorded this, the Kettler introduction had not been formalized. So Brad, who is not mentioned in the podcast you're about to hear, will be there for the Roar Before the 24 this weekend, the Rolex 24 with Joest. So Brad is going to be there as a consultant brought in by Joest, not hired by Mazda, at least at this stage. And who knows, very strong probability he could be there for the rest of the season. So that's the only thing you don't hear us discuss, just because of the timing of when that got sorted out. All right, with all that said, you know you can get every episode of the Marshall Pruett Podcast presented by Cooper Tires on iTunes, also on Podbean, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, all manner of good places. We also have our Marshall Pruett Podcast Facebook page where you can subscribe, like, and do a variety of things and get everything that we publish the moment that it goes up. All right, let's get going with our man John Doonan. Had some fun here, had a couple of laughs, and also had some serious moments too, so hopefully you enjoy this deeper dive, or catching up with John Doonan, to really understand what they've done, where they're trying to go in 2019 with Mazda Team Joest. Mr. Doonan, I am looking at this 2019 IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, Mazda Team Joest, RT24P lineup. That's a lot to write, by the way, in a headline. I'm looking at this revised driver lineup. Also, I would say as many, if not a similar level of adjustments on the team side. And boy, at least when I'm looking at the other teams in DPI going into 2019, I can't think of one that has really made as many high-profile and high-ambition changes going into the new season. Maybe that's just a good start. Give me the thought process, if you can, on coming out of 2018 and clearly deciding, all right, We know that there is more to get in 2019, but how do we get there?
Well, first, thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure to be on with you, Marshall. Happy holidays to all your listeners, and happy New Year for everybody. 2018 was a crazy year for the world of motorsport, and our program was no different. Obviously, major changes as we kicked off our new relationship with Joest Racing on the IMSA program, and a huge effort by the team and certainly our partners at AER and Multimatic to take the program to a new level. So, 18 was a learning experience. We stood on the podium at Mid-Ohio for the first time. I'd call it a steady progression. We had several races that we should have closed the deal on race victories with. We didn't for one reason or another. But coming into Petit Le Mans, I think everybody put it all out there, and it showed what we're capable of as a program. Both cars on the podium, and probably what I would characterize as one of the best sports car races in history, with all the classes, different leaders. I think almost every manufacturer led in every single category. So, but for us, it's sole focus on putting Mazda in victory circle, and the Petit Le Mans finish really gave us some solid momentum to close out the season and to head into a pretty rigorous testing program, and then the 2019 campaign. And as all programs do, you evaluate where you are performance-wise, you evaluate where you are personnel-wise, and we sat down with our key stakeholders, that is Multimatic, who's made a massive investment in this program, AER, who's been with us since 2006 and done a yeoman's job of making the smallest displacement engine in the paddock competitive, and the race team. And we looked at personnel at all levels, and we've made some additions, we've made some changes to continue to help us to do that one sole thing, and that is to put Mazda on the top step of the podium for all of our fans and for all those who follow Mazda and who own Mazdas.
Before we get into the revised driver lineups, one of the things which I'm hoping IMSA fans and sports car fans will love, it's that extra 700 RPMs Mazda and our pals at AER came up with. Looking at the numbers, this should be the highest revving engine in the WeatherTech Championship. And yeah, I mean, obviously IMSA sets the rev limits for every car through BOP, but tell me if I'm wrong, but it might not be too long, maybe next year, I'm not sure when, but that little 2-liter Turbo 4 could be crossing the 10,000 RPM threshold if it's allowed to. That should please the ears, man, that's for sure.
Well, I can assure the fans. I hope they have an ear to the track when the cars run, starting at the Roar this coming weekend. But first of all, the credit to this whole thing goes to IMSA. They've done a yeoman's job of managing BOP, from Simon to Jeff Carter to the entire IMSA technical committee. They've got a tough job, but they, in my opinion, have done the best job of anybody on the planet managing and keeping the parity that is what we've all invested in. So that's first. I think second is with the class separation of DPI and LMP2, it's been our goal for the manufacturers that have invested in it to keep the budgets in check. And again, IMSA is focused on that as well in all of their decisions. And so with the separation, we did some work with full disclosure to IMSA and the other manufacturers. to try to get us off the ceiling. As the smallest displacement engine in the paddock, we have been on the ceiling of performance and frankly, reliability. And again, credit to AER. Outside of some challenges we faced early on in the 2018 campaign, and we didn't have an engine issue all year. And so we're really proud of that. We're going to continue that as we head into 19. But the thing sounds amazing. I can't wait for the fans to hear it. And really that is not so much to do with it revving higher. We did some really nice installation, cleaned up the engine bay, not really performance related, but just cleaned it up a little bit. We got a little different exhaust routing, and the thing sounds really special. Yes, it does rev higher. And I'm really, again, in testing, you're there by yourself, and there's not a lot of other ambient noise going on, but it sounds really sweet. And as you know, the sound of the rotary means a lot to us. I wouldn't say this thing sounds like a rotary, but it definitely screams a little bit more.
I will have to concur on the comment about the rerouting of the exhaust. Rather adventurous of you guys to route it up out of the engine cover, forward, through the right side door, and then up through the roof like a chimney. I mean, again, I don't know if that's very aerodynamic. That's a lot of pipe sticking out in the air, but, hey, Lord bless you.
It's like I sat down with Larry Holt and Mike Lancaster, and we decided we were going to enter the tractor pull.
See?
So
I had a feeling.
It looks just like a tractor pull you see at the county fair.
I had a feeling, and if dear listeners look for it, you might not see it, but at least in my fuzzy brain it exists. So let's go to our team lineup here, and this is one of those things where I was super happy when I heard a fair while back about some of the possibilities, and it's great to hear that those possibilities have come true. Let's start with the 55 entry, obviously sticking with what has become a really solid two-driver full-season program. I love your endurance driver change for the season, though. So tell us about the 55 RT24P. Not only who is driving, who's staying, and who's coming in new, but the thought process about how you came up with the addition and maybe personality mix.
Well, I think across the program, a general statement before I get into the specifics on the car is that we've come together as an organization, and my technical partner, the technical partner for Mazda Motorsports, is Multimatic. Larry Holt, Stephen Charsley, Julian Soul, George Howard Chappell, these people are world-class, and we've come together, talked about how to have success and share resources, and they have brought, starting with 18, Harry Tinknell to the table. He's been a terrific addition to our program, just a gem of a guy, and you mix him with our foundation drivers from the Mazda Road to 24, and him and Jonathan, they're like schoolboy friends forever.
Yeah.
They really have great chemistry. They share similar approaches and feedback, and so that's been a match made in heaven. Thanks again to Multimatic and to the Ford folks for allowing Harry to join us in the DPI program. With his WEC duties. Jonathan enters his 8th season racing with Mazda.
Wow.
He's been a staple of our program, and just in the last few weeks, he and I have had some one-on-one time as we visited a couple of Mazda dealerships that have just put up our new Retail Evolution dealership facility, and we've had a lot of time to talk about the program, and he's really pleased to be back driving with Harry. And then, once again in the off season, we looked at and analyzed all of our drivers that have performed for us over time. And Larry and Stephen suggested Mr. Olivier Pla, and to have him join us again, a guy that's got massive experience in a bunch of different LMP2 style chassis. as well as his WEC experience. Former Petit Le Mans winner, started on the open wheel side, much like Jonathan and Harry. So he brings that precision of an open wheel driver with the intensity that's required in the IMSA WeatherTech Championship, especially in DPI. The field is so deep and so competitive. But those three are going to threaten immediately together. Harry and Olivier have obviously worked together on the Multimatic in the Ford GT program. And so just a great chemistry. They've all driven together now in winter testing, and I'm really excited about what that group is capable of.
The Olivier Plas signing in particular just stands out as one of those spot-on things, and I'm not blowing smoke here. I've been a huge fan of Ollie's for a long time. I remember when the Ford GT program was getting assembled and there was questions about, how do I get in? He really wanted to be a part of that. It's great that he has become a part of that. I love the fact, too, John, and maybe give me some thoughts about this. Known as a P2 guy, prototype guy in our world, says, hey, I really want to be a part of this Ford GT effort, has been successful there. And from that, Multimatic, also Ford's primary partner in that effort, has said, hey, we got this guy who's really talented, and we have seen the light that this guy is supreme in all that he does. Maybe you should consider him for an endurance role when he's free. Tell me about how that came together, because I'm sure you could have rung up many folks to be your endurance driver, maybe even bigger names than Pla, but seems like there was some cool kind of cross-partner work that led him to your door.
Yeah, the car itself does not get transformed without Multimatic, and this driver lineup does not happen without Multimatic and their willingness to do exactly what you suggested. Let's look at every aspect of the program. Let's make sure that when we line up for the Rolex 24 the last weekend in January, we bring every possible benefit to the table. Everything is there on the front straightaway. We're gonna start the race that way, and we're gonna leave it all on the track. And to bring Olivier, Larry, and his group again with Ford's blessing, bringing a talent like him to the table, to already establish partnership that Jonathan and Harry started last January. Really thrilled. He's a lovely person. I've worked with him in terms of being in the paddock together and wished him well and congratulated him when he's had success in the past, but never had the chance to, spend a day at the track with him. Now I've had a chance to do that. And he's just going to be a great addition with Jonathan and Harry. All three of them get on real well and are focused on one thing. And it's funny how it also works out, size-wise. The guys are all perfect, size-wise. So, we're able to limit some of the need for seat inserts and things like that, which is always a nice little detail.
Let's finish up on one other item on this number 55 entry. I've been a huge fan of J-Bombs since his Atlantic days. I mean, just for a really long time, all the success he's had. Not sure that I saw the absolute finest version of Bommarito, maybe 2017 a little bit, maybe, I don't know if I should say even a little bit into 18, but it seems like, and every driver throughout their career goes through some sort of small lull. It's inevitable. What did you see in Bommarito in this new lineup between himself and Harry Tignall, again on a full-time basis, in 18 that maybe had you say, all right, whatever, if there was a little tiny bit lacking either in clarity or fire or whatever it was, tell me about the thing you saw within Bommarito that came back to full force this past season, because, he and Harry were a nasty combo, especially as we went to close 2018.
Yeah, I was giving Bommarito a hard time in Tyler, Texas. We visited Velocity Mazda, one of our great motorsports energized dealers, Camden Jones and his team down there. We did a motorsports night there, and I was teasing Jonathan. I said, you haven't even reached your prime yet. And he said, man, I thought I had a pretty good season in 18. And I said, yeah, I just know that there's more to come. And we had a good chuckle there in front of all the customers at the dealership. But you're spot on. I mean, as we approached 2018 and the new Mazda team Joest, everybody to a person said they had to raise their game. And I would say none other has done what Jonathan has done in terms of raising his game. He brought fire. He brought, additional pace. He brought additional focus. He brought additional fitness. He brought, anything that needed to be brought. He offered to help me on things that I needed help with. He has made what I would say, maybe renewed his vows, and said, look, I'm committed. I'm going to raise my game, and you all better come along with me. And he did exactly that. I think, Jonathan's deserved respect around the world as one of the top endurance drivers anywhere. And I think he's now certainly earned that, raised some people's eyebrows, and said, this guy's good. Oh my gosh, this guy's for real. And he proved it. Talk about how he drove at Petit and many other races, but really proud of him, and he's obviously been a face of the Mazda brand for many years, and I hope that's to continue.
You know what else he brought? A fine sports car beard to close the season as well. I think that might be the secret. I like to think I have one of the more not quality, but one of the more distinct beards in the sports car paddock. I think he was definitely on pole position there to close the year. I'm like, all right, man, you're kicking my butt here. You're many laps up with that sucker, so maybe he needs to keep it.
Well, our carbon guy Castro spent some time doing body double matches, and he found that Bomberito and Hugh Jackman have a match, as well as Tank Nell and Quentin Tarantino. So you just start thinking about those guys. But Bomber lost some weight over the winter, mainly in his facial hair. So he's ready to go for Daytona.
Oh, well, so much for all the good things we said. He's clearly going to have a bad season. Let's talk about the 77 car. I mean, I'm almost as excited to get to some of the team-based changes outside of the driver changes, but let's talk about the 77. And again, we have a continuation of the same full-time team from last year in Tristan Nunez and our man Ollie Jarvis. The endurance side, I mean, that's fascinating, John. It really is. If I look at one name in particular who'll be new to the team, I'm thinking, you've got a world endurance champion. You've got a overall Le Mans winner. You have a person who set the clear outright lap record in the Porsche 919 Evo. And he, I believe, wanted to drive for you. Tell us about Timo Bernhard coming into this team. I mean, that's, again, maybe a little bit of the subtext, not in the press release folks will have seen, but as I understand it, he came to you at some point and just said, hey, if I'm allowed to, if Porsche allows me to and such, would there be any interest in having me a part of your team? I mean, if that's true, that's pretty big, man.
Well, I really appreciate the kind words, and you're right. We got two Ollies. We got Ollie Jarvis and Ollie Pla, Olivier Pla, but this whole 77 crew is getting an additional boost to what they had last year. To bring Timo in is really special, and we've known each other since 2005. Back in the American Le Mans Series days when he was running GT cars. Always a mutual respect between the folks at Porsche and myself. Very similar philosophies about motorsport and how the motorsport strategy can help support and build and market the brand. But Timo is someone I've always respected, and little known to me with outside of handshakes and hugs when we congratulate one another is the fact that he did want to, in fact, drive for Mazda, the Mazda brand, and for me. And he came to me at the end of Petit and said there might be an opening for next year if you have any opportunities. And you get a chance to put a 3-time Le Mans winner, a 5-time Nürburgring 24 winner, a guy that's won Daytona, won 12 Hours of Sebring in your program with his experience, his talent. I'm just thrilled. He's a world-class guy, a world-class human being, and obviously a world-class driver. So to add him to the mixture, again, thanks to Porsche, allowing him to join us for the prototype events, it's really, really spectacular.
And we also have Rene Rast, a continuing member of the team from last year. Where do you anticipate Rene fitting in, knowing that for his ability to be part of the program in 2018, there was obviously some juggling with his DTM efforts for Audi? What are we thinking after Daytona? We knowing that you're going to have this 4-car Nunez, Jarvis, Bernard, and Rast effort for the 24, but where do you think Rene is going to fit in maybe for the rest of the endurance rounds? Do you think Timo might be able to fill in for some if needed? Just curious there.
Yeah, we're committed to putting our best foot forward at Daytona. We're going to analyze things after that. Timo's committed to run with us for the 4 endurance races, that being Daytona, Sebring, Watkins, and Petit. Rene obviously is also world-class, really proud of what he's done, and also thankful to Mr. Goss and the team at Audi for allowing him to join us for the long races. What a show he put on at the end of the DTM championship last year. I mean, it's like, put the ball in my hands, coach. I'm going to finish the game, and he sure did. Obviously, he wanted a little bit more at the very end, but what a performance. And he brings such a steady ideal to the behind the wheel. He just gets in the car, and you never see the guy get rattled. And to have him back is fantastic. But we'll analyze where we're at after Daytona. But it's all eyes and all focus on the 24 Hours of Daytona right now. And this lineup is pretty stellar. We decided to run 4 guys in this car because of the talent level and the mixture that we have available to us. And really proud of what Ali, Jarvis, and Tristan did last year. Tristan also raised his game and has become not that he was a young boy, but he's become a man among these guys, and I think been a sponge and learned from world class, and his level of engineering feedback, also thanks to the Multimatic Vehicle Dynamics team, has really grown. And so I think we got a pretty awesome group of guys that we're putting forth here on the entry list, and I can't wait to see what happens.
Got 2 follow-up questions here before we move on to the team changes, and you just started touching on one of young Tristan and his veteran teammate, although new to the team, but a veteran prototype driver, and Ollie Jarvis. Certainly Tristan was at a place and has been as the kid in the team, the youngster. I mean, I'm still not sure if he's shaving yet, but where do you think he is at, and this full-time combo of Jarvis and Nunez are at going into 2019 after a full year of working together, after Tristan obviously learning from his veteran teammates as well, but you think this is less of a young Jedi along with the master type routine and more of a peer-to-peer relationship? Or is that, still something that you think Tristan is close to reaching but not all the way there yet?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. They've gone from, I would say, experienced veteran to younger student to being peers. Tristan, again, his feedback and his level of attention to detail has risen to a new level. I think there's more that you're going to see out of Tristan. He is far from done in his growth. Ali Jarvis has been a great addition to the program. Obviously brings a bucket load of experience, not only in prototypes, but driving for other manufacturers and relationship with Joest in the past. So I'm proud of what they did. Obviously, a podium finish at Mid-Ohio was a really big step in the program that early in the season. But there's more to come from those two. And again, I think Tristan has even a few more gears left. If he was running in sixth gear at Petite. He's got 7 and 8 left to show us as an industry, and really proud of what he's accomplished. Hard to believe he's been with us as many years as he's been with us over time, as young as he is. He's starting his 7th season of driving for us as Bomberitos in his 8th. So, those guys are staples of the Road to 24 program, and let's see what 2019 brings.
I also wanted to thank you, probably on my father's behalf or my grandfather's behalf. They're not here with us anymore, unfortunately, but wanted to thank you on their behalf for coming up with a driver lineup that sounds like every joke. They started out like every joke they ever told me. 2 Americans, 2 Brits, 2 Germans, and a Frenchman walk into a bar. That's the that's the driver lineup you got here. That is good stuff.
Well, Mazda, it is special. Mazda's obviously a global brand, and our entities, Mazda Europe, including Mazda France, Mazda Germany. We've got Mazda UK. Obviously, we got stories to tell, and Ollie's been doing some work for my colleagues at Mazda UK, and Ollie Pla is excited to potentially work with some of the folks at Mazda France. So we've got a Mazda brand story to tell around the world, and you're right. It's I said to somebody over the Christmas holiday, 2 Americans, 2 Brits, 2 Frenchmen, and or two Germans and a Frenchman going to battle at Daytona together. It's definitely the world, the potpourri of racing drivers and countries represented.
The other thing I realize I should mention before we get to the team side, and it falls in the driver category. Who knows? Hopefully he'll get a chance to do some laps in an RT24P, but we also have a pretty cool thing of Mazda's endurance racing ladder with Nico Rieger, who's going to be moving up into the prototype challenge class. Tell me a little bit about that, because, again, I'm accustomed to such things on the open wheel side, and with Mazda sponsoring the Road to Indy through the 2018 season, very accustomed to a kid winning something, getting a big prize, and stepping up the ladder. It seems like Nico is getting the opportunity to do this on the sports car side with IMSA. And, I'm sure he's also badgering the heck out of you. All right, your 2020 Rolex lineup better have my name on it, Doonan.
Well, things work out for a reason. Last year, of course, Patrick Gallagher, MX5 champion from 17, was able to bring his $200,000 scholarship. And again, thanks to our Multimatic partnership and ModSpace, a longtime partner, to the Continental Series, now the Michelin Pilot Challenge with Chad McCumbee, and they won a race in a Mustang, and it was an awesome deal. We don't have a car currently in that platform right now. More news to come on that. But as we looked to a place for our 2018 champion in MX5 Cup, Nico Rieger, we got to talking. He did test a USF 2000 car with Cape Motorsports down in Homestead. But he's a sports car guy through and through, Nico is, and we talked about some options. And he found a home in the Prototype Challenge category, and he's going to run with 47 Motorsports, starting out at the Roar. And lo and behold, his co-driver comes from the same bloodline. His brother is going to be his co-driver, which is really exciting. At Mazda, racing's a family effort, and those guys are going to co-drive together, taking Nico's $200,000 scholarship from the battery tender MX5 Cup onto LMP3 car.
Well, that is brilliant. The team side stuff. We'll readily admit, been sitting on this for a little while, knowing that there were some big announcements coming here too, and there's also some very, I would say, measured efforts to share this information. Biggest one, and I think the one that might surprise some folks, but I don't know if it should. You came out of 2018 definitely wanting more, knowing that you could have achieved more. And looking on the team side, I know that there's been some good opportunities where both long-time Joest Racing Managing Director / Technical Director, Ralph Uttner, is headed back to Germany to look after some project work there for Mr. Joest, Reinhold Joest. And that means that Jan Lang has a chance to step into that role, kind of a veteran deputy, if you want to call that, within the former Audi Sport LMP1 program. Tell me about this change and how it came about, because for many of us, when we think of Joest Racing, no disrespect to Mr. Joest, but we think of Ralph first. So knowing that you're going into 19 with Ralph on different projects back home for Mr. Joest, how did this decision come, and how did the decision to assert Jan in that role come together?
Yeah, ultimately, the program is a joint effort between everybody around the table, and that's I think why we've had the success we've had is from July of 2018. We sat around a table at Joest Racing headquarters in Germany with Multimatic, Larry and his team, Mike Lancaster and his team from AER, myself, and Mr. Joest and Ralph and everybody, and said, what do we need to do to have success together? And again, we haven't achieved the ultimate success, but the progress we've made is due in part to everybody bringing all their resources to the table, including people. Jan has been someone that's been in that sort of role before, and given everything that's on the plate at Joest, Mr. Joest and myself and Larry, and we all sat down at the end of the season and we made some adjustments in there to give Jan the opportunity to really spend more time in the States managing the project. Ralph, again, continues to be part of the Joest Racing family, and his experience certainly won't be put by the wayside. But Jan has played this similar role with Audi, and it's a perfect opportunity to put more attention on the program here in the States. And in addition, Chris Mower has been brought on.
Yep, my dear friend Chris. Yep.
Yeah, massive experience. So he and Jan are probably just like that driver pairing of Bomarito and Tinknell, or Jarvis and Nunez. They're getting on very well, and Chris is now positioned in the Atlanta headquarters. So you bring those two guys together, like the driver pairings, the experience of Mr. Joest and Ralph in the background, again, I just want to show up at Daytona with everything at its best, and I haven't been this confident, cautious confidence going into a season in many years because of the personnel that are leading. It's all about people and process. Larry Holt and his group have brought massive effort, more engineers, more mechanics to help support what we've got from Joest. It's going to be an army that's focused on one thing, and that's bringing home a victory for Mazda and many more after that.
Let's touch on one more thing related to Jan and the changeover here. I know that there were high hopes and expectations for this new Mazda Team Joest union in 2018, not only to produce wins, that's the number one goal, but just execution was expected to be at a higher level than it had been with your previous service provider. We're honest here, didn't always see that. We know that it was desired, but did not always see that. Can you share some thoughts about whether it's conversations with Jan now, conversations with the team, how you have worked? Because you don't leave these things up to hope or chance. Hope things get better. You talk, you plan, you strategize. Can you share some thoughts with us about how you came out of the 18 season, worked with Jan now in that directorish role over the program here in the States, and said, okay, we know we can execute at a higher level, make fewer mistakes. How has the conversation taken place? What sort of ideas do you think have come out that might get you to where you want to be?
It's a great question, and I share some thoughts as we turned the corner into 2018. The race car was new for Joest. Joest was new for me. Working with the engineers at Multimatic was new for the team. For the drivers, there was a lot of newness, and even though you bring world-class organizations like Multimatic, like Joest Racing, like AER, and like Mazda together, there's newness, and you're 100% correct. We certainly win as a team, and we face challenges as a team. We fumbled the ball on a few occasions. We had, some pit stops didn't go so great. We had some wheels that rolled down the side of the track at Daytona as well as at Petit Le Mans, and those little things turn into really big things when the IMSA championship is so competitive. Racing in this championship is not easy, and it requires every attention to detail. And the teams that have won championships over time in the WeatherTech series have focused on that. And so as we finished up Petit, obviously fortunate enough to claw our way back with the 55 car after we fumbled on a pit stop. We did analyze every aspect of the program. Most every team in the paddock, videotapes their pit stops and executes better the next time, and that's what we plan to do. Preparation and logistics and all the details of having the cars prepared. So it's no single event in particular. It's just an ongoing analysis, just like we did with the driver lineup and looking at the performances of drivers across the season. And there's lots of people that have touched this program over time. Back to our previous service provider, back to drivers that have grabbed the steering wheel, back to people that have put wheels on during pit stops, people that have refueled the car. And I think for me, when success does come, I hope, and I've told everybody in the team, when success does come, I'm going to look them in the eye and ask them one question, and that's how it feels. Tell me how it feels, because all the effort and all the hours and all the emails and conference calls and all the planning that's gone into it, they've all played a role. And people that are not on the program anymore, they've touched it in some way too. And so I think it's important to not lose sight of that. The people that execute, the people that deliver, they're the ones that have a tough job right now. But at the same time, there's people that have put hours and effort and blood, sweat, and tears into this. And, we're doing this for all the Mazda fans out there. And for me, when success does come, and I hope it comes real soon, I'm not going to forget everybody that laid hands on this program.
And you're going to be a blubbering mess. I am sending IMSA a note right now that the heck with champagne on the podium. They need to have about 27 frickin' boxes of Kleenex for Doonan. So, we might even need to get a little kind of one of those, a little blow-up pool for you to stand in to collect all the tears. So, we'll get ready for that. Well, let's close, John, on the race engineers for both cars, because we've had changes there. Are you prepared? Actually, I shouldn't say are you. Are your drivers prepared for having at least one race engineer who might be more popular than all of them together, that being Multimatics, and she is a Multimatic employee, not a Mazda employee, but Multimatics Lena Gade. I mean, again, I wasn't overselling things in the beginning of the podcast when I said there's more changes going on with this team in any prototype category in IMSA than any other by a wide margin. She's not the only new appointment to full-time race engineer role, but tell me about working with Multimatic to get one of I'd say the world's most prominent and well-known race engineer, Le Mans winner, and just an awesome woman in general in Lena onto the program.
Once again, I can't give it up enough for the Multimatic staff. Raj Nair, now leading that entire organization. Larry Holt, Stephen Charsley, the whole vehicle dynamics team. To add Lena to their lineup is massive. To have her be able to have some of her time dedicated to engineering the 77 car is fantastic. We're thrilled to have her. I had never met her. Lovely human being. Obviously, massive talent, massive experience. You sit down to dinner with some of these folks that have got the resume and the acumen that someone like Lena has, and they're talking about specific laps of specific races of specific years at specific tracks, and the detail that went into it. But she's jumped right in. She's taken the reins. She is very impressive. I know that we have all the ingredients being mixed in the pot now for success, and I can't wait again to see what happens at Daytona. But once again, everybody's going to have to continue to raise their game internally in our program because of the level of talent that we've assembled here. And I say we, meaning all the partners and myself, as well as the competition in IMSA. It's going to get tough, and it's going to get tougher each and every weekend. So we're excited to go to battle.
So we also have a change on the 55 car as well. Why don't you walk through that? Another, again, Multimatic partnership or co-decision with Mazda as well. I mean, this is... Yeah, there's some beasts. You got some beasts coming into the program, man. I'm so happy for you. But tell us about the 55 side as well, because there's also tons of talent now going to be, additional talent on that timing stand.
Yeah, again, grateful to Larry Holt, George Howard Chappell, and everybody on the Multimatic side for allowing Dave Wilcock to join on the 55 car. He obviously has worked with Harry and Olivier on their Ford GT project, and hit it off right away with Jonathan. And again, it's I keep repeating myself, a little bit broken record style, but no weak links, and I can tell you we've sat down and talked about every one of these additions and updates, and I'm very, very pleased with where we're at the moment. No overly optimistic attitude going into Daytona, just because I know how tough it is with everybody else in the paddock. So we're going to focus on our deal. We're going to focus on attention to details of everything that we can control, and then we'll see what God has planned the rest of the way. But really pleased with Dave joining, as well as Lena, and again, thankful to Larry and Raj and everybody on the Multimatic side for being willing to invest so much to see this program have success.
Let's close on that, John, and I was planning on closing on the team items, but figuring that you've mentioned the name Multimatic at least 116 times so far, it sounds like, and all positive, but it sounds like, or tell me if this is correct, but it sounds like with everything that's coming in 2018, it sounds like there's either, I don't know whether I should say a closer relationship with Multimatic or an expansion of the relationship, but it at least sounds from your many descriptions like whatever links and ties that two of you have had in this RT24P chassis with a lot of the developments that helped turn the car, find multiple seconds of pace between 2017 and 2018. Is there some sort of, increased level of collaboration or otherwise going into 19 between you guys?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. And you can relate to this, and I'm sure all your listeners can. When you face a challenge, whether it's personal or professional, you have your go-to. You have your lifeline. And for me, on the technical side, Multimatic, Larry, Steven, and their whole army of people, Julian Soul, Peter Gibbons, you name it. These people have been our Mazda Motorsports go-to in amongst all the other programs that they are working on, they've got their hands in so many things because they deserve to be there. They've been a go-to for me. You think back to when we had the Sky Active diesel program and we couldn't get out of pit lane without breaking an input shaft. Larry at the roar came running to our trailer and said, "What do we got to do to fix this?" And he and his team showed up such that by the race, that particular problem was solved. And when you have a true partner like that, and throughout my career, I don't think there's been a single partner that has risen to the occasion over and over and over again like Multimatic has for us. And I'm not blowing smoke, it's the facts. And these people are willing to put on the armor and go to battle with you no matter what the challenge. And I would say it's always been there. They have probably, out of anyone, invested besides us in making this RT24 program a success and wanting to put everything forward that they could to see it through. And I just can't thank them enough. I sent a note to the Multimatic family, as I do to most all of our partners around the holidays or right before the holidays, and said, you guys mean the world, and I'm just thrilled to know when something goes wrong, they're going to be the first people to roll up their sleeves, not in panic mode, but in attack mode in terms of how we solve the problem and how we take it forward. So they are problem solvers there. They're not people that worry about, and they're solution based. They're not people that focus on what's wrong. And so a little bit long-winded answer there, Marshall, but the fact is I've got a true partner there. And when you think of the technical partner for Mazda Motorsports, among folks like Long Road Racing that build the MX-5 Cup car and many others, Multimatic is our technical partner, and they've proven not only for Mazda but for many manufacturers why they get called upon so often to facilitate and solve problems for people.
I'm happy for you, John. Excited for you and all the changes you've made, and cannot wait to get this season underway and to see how your new endurance lineup, your new race engineers, your new managerial infrastructure. Big task. Not expecting it all to be perfect from the outset. There's still a lot of people having to learn how to work together, but I love the ambition and the aggression that you've shown here.
Well, I appreciate the kind words. I want nothing more, and we as Mazda want nothing more than to win multiple times and win a championship. And when that day comes, you're right, it's going to be an emotional one for so many people that have invested so much, and I can't wait for it. I've told them, everyone has been saying, you guys are close, and I appreciate that. I've never wanted a give me. We want to earn it. It took us 17 tries to win Le Mans, and we finally did. 17 years worth. I know this is my heading into my 17th year at Mazda. So if anyone wants to play symbolism, maybe that has something to do with it. But this is my 17th, going to be heading into my 17th year at Mazda, and so maybe there's some sort of little omen there. But the fact of the matter is, we need to win. We want to win. We're going to win. I can't be a Joe Namath and say we're going to win on this specific date, but I'll tell you, we're bringing everything to the table for 19. IMSA's 50th year, and I need to give it up to them. We've been a partner with IMSA for nearly all those 50 years, from our first RX2 victory back at Lime Rock in 1973 to the next IMSA victory that we have. Congratulations to Mr. France and the Bishop family and everything that they've done for sports car racing, and I hope that 2019 allows us to write some new chapters, not only in IMSA history, but certainly in Mazda Motorsports history and Mazda's brand history.
Amen. Well, thank you, brother, for joining us here in the good old, hey, it's named after me, funny, the Marshall Pruett Podcast, presented by Cooper Tires, and we'll look forward to seeing you here shortly at The Roar, and then as we get the new season of IMSA's WeatherTech Championship underway, and whatever storylines you guys might help write, along with so many others. Thanks for coming on, John.
Thanks for having me as always, and we'll see everybody down in Daytona here in a few days.
And that was Mazda's John Doonan. Really do hope that they have a high caliber, high quality year. Hope that they get a couple of wins, just for the sake that of the 4 DPI manufacturers, they are the only ones who have not registered a win so far, and knowing that keeping manufacturers like Mazda fully engaged often comes with success. So for the health of IMSA, and also for the health of John and that program, I think there are many, probably some of their rivals as well, rooting for them to at least get a win, maybe 2, really just to lock Mazda in even more into their commitment to IMSA. You go too many years without a victory, and that's maybe where some folks start to question, should they be spending the money somewhere else, if not outside of racing altogether. So for those who care for IMSA, care for the health of the series, I think a lot of folks, no matter what brand allegiance you might have, probably be crossing some fingers at whether it's at Daytona or the 10 other rounds or however many that follow the season, they do get into victory lane, get that monkey off their back. And then, I think what could be even the coolest part, with all the drivers and the team-based personnel we just discussed, what would be the best outcome here? It would be a 4-way fight at every round. It would be the Cadillacs, the Acura, the Nissan, the Mazda, you name it. Just in a true battle royale wherever we go. Had that a little bit, but I'm hoping 2019, for everyone's sake, all those brands, just becomes the best knockdown, drag-out fight for them and for fans to watch, all on NBC Sports. So, pretty cool stuff coming for IMSA. We also have the start of its 50th anniversary celebrations, which might be my favorite part of the year that's coming up, knowing how much a role IMSA has played in my life since it was the first race I ever remember seeing in about 76 again, 75, 76, maybe 77, but yeah, been a part of my life almost from the start, and so fortunate to be there covering it every single week. All right, I'm Marshall Pruett. This is the Marshall Pruett Podcast presented by Cooper Tires. Thank you for listening.